Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. And Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101.
Jason Zink, Emporium presents, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Promoter 101 podcast. Joining me now, W. Luke Pierce, just in time to remind us all to call your mother.
We're keeping it rocking with the international sessions as we featured in an interview later today with Montreux Jazz Festival's Michaela Maiterth on the podcast, all the way from Switzerland, Dan.
Plus a war story with Minneapolis' historic theater group's Rick Hansen. He loves that Minnie, doesn't he?
He really does love Minnie. Can you believe it? Promoter 101, episode 168. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Sarah Pelch. I'm on Promoter 101.
The word is out.
It's out, Dan.
The cat is out of the bag, kittens. Promoter 101 is coming to an end. But before we wrap it up, we're going to count our way down to beautiful Nashville, Tennessee for the AIBA conference in October as we do our last interview for their keynote session.
That's right. Our final interview, our final live podcast will be at the International Entertainment Buyers Association Conference. This is October 27th to the 29th. Here in Music City, Nashville, Tennessee. Please join us at AIBA. It'll be held at the JW Marriott Hotel, and we look forward to wrapping this podcast and this journey up with so many of our dear friends and listeners along the way. If you've not registered for the conference at this point, please head over immediately to ieba.org. That's ieba.org. Come check us out. Get registered for the conference. We hope to see you there. And Dan, I hope that we're going to be able to announce this very special guest very soon, the final one, Dan.
It seems like only a matter of time before we're going to let the cat out of the bag there. But, still building suspense, building a little bit. I actually may tell you soon.
Ooh, very funny. He withholds, guys.
I do. I'm a little bit of a dick like that. If you got something you want to share with us, simply email us at steiny@promoter101.net. We'll talk back to you. That's all right.
Or, we could be over on social media, Dan. You can hit us up on Twitter. I'm at W. Luke Pierce, Dan's the Jew. The show is Promoter 101.
You can find us on Instagram. The show is Steiny@promoter101. Luke is W. Luke Pierce. I'm Dan Presents.
We're on Facebook at Promoter 101. We're on the World Wide Web, Promoter101.com as well, too. And Dan, we're on some other places, too.
Doing that LinkedIn thing now, Tumblr, what have you.
LinkedIn!
We're talking about finding a way to start a Friendster page, just for the people that are like getting a time machine so they could still listen to Promoter 101 back in the early days of the new millennia.
That's right.
Hi, this is Dave Fry, welcoming you to Promoter 101. I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia, Silent Partner Management.
Let's celebrate some birthdays this week, Dan. It's July 16th and 22nd, 2019. Who we got?
Tuesday the 16th, Alex Christie, Billy Hardison, and Tim McGrath.
On Wednesday the 17th, wishing a happy birthday to Max Adler, Jerry Gerard, and Mark Salas.
Thursday, 7/18, Kristen Dahl, Bruce Eskowitz, and Russell Carter.
On Friday the 19th, wishing a happy birthday to Paradigms, Matt Runner, Steve Heath, Jason LaJeunesse, and Tim Faust from Home Free.
Saturday, 7/20, Josiah Albertson and Brett Steers.
On Sunday the 21st, a happy birthday goes out to David Klein, Jason Kupperman, John Schultz, John Reese, and Eric Newson.
7/22, Ed Rubenstein, Danny Sachs, Whitney Bond, Jake Schneider, and Larry Cawson. Like that Larry guy. Good people, Larry Cawson. Good people.
Wonderful wishes to all of you on your birthday from us at Promoter 101.
Successfully kissed a lot of ass very quickly once again, Luke.
That's how it goes, Dan. That's how it goes.
Well done, us.
Hi, this is Heath Miller.
Becca Leifer.
Ed Mike Cohn.
Derek Dimmenstein.
Jason Kupperman.
Jason Miller. John Schur.
Marcia Flessick.
Mike Fruitman. Ricardo Bacco.
Peter Schwartz.
Nick Storch. I'm on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
I'm on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101 Flashbacks.
Episode 23.
John Giddings.
Some of your artists are very big, but some of them you've been with you a very long time. Iggy Pop has been very loyal to you, right?
Over 30 years, yeah. How did I meet Jim? I think it was when David Bowie was the keyboard player in the band, because I looked after David for 30 years, which I'm really proud of. I mean, as an artist, he was the greatest of all time. But there's two people. There's James Osterberg and there's Iggy Pop. And of all the acts I've ever represented, the people ask most about Iggy Pop and the Ramones, which is quite interesting. And Jim is just a great, intelligent, sophisticated guy who's got a great catalogue of music, doesn't tolerate fools, and I really enjoy working with him.
This is an amazing roster. Now, you guys have booked the world except North America, right?
That's right. I mean, again, with punk groups, it was really hard breaking into Europe. People like Herman Sherman would help us in Belgium. That's how I met all those promoters at an early stage, because they would do me favours and develop acts. But it was only with early 80s, with Duran and Tears for Fears, when we got into Japan, Australia, and we toured the world for the first time, really. That's how we gained experience of it. And I remember Wayne Forte calling me up and saying, "Can you get Wembley for David Bowie?" And I booked Wembley Arena, and he sent me a telex back saying, "No, I mean Wembley Stadium." And I went up there and booked it, and my legs shook for 5 minutes, actually, because I didn't know what I was doing. But it's just a bigger gig, really. You sell the tickets and you have more security.
I guess in the booking concept of it, promoting, there's a lot of more logistics in a stadium show, of course.
It's much easier to be a promoter when you have no money, because you're not actually risking anything. When you have some money, it becomes a much bigger gamble. And it's, you know, now with the big companies, Live Nation, AEG, it's a big, big game, and you need a corporate structure to battle the world.
Have you guys thought about going into the U.S. and booking? It's the only thing you guys haven't conquered, it seems.
First of all, when I thought the only way I can become successful is by having a link in America. So late 80s, early 90s, I knew Wayne Forte because he'd, really helped me, and we'd worked with Paul Young. And
this is when him and Michael were ruling the world?
Yeah, that's right. They had great acts, The Cure, Depeche Mode, Duran, and I sold them half my company, so we became solo ITG. And partners in that company were Michael Cole and Tony Smith, who represented the Rolling Stones and Genesis. So that was probably the best move I ever made by achieving that. And then it went from strength to strength, really, because I got into stadium touring. And so through, first one was Phil Collins, then it became Genesis, then it was the Rolling Stones. Through the Rolling Stones we got U2. The Rolling Stones, the meeting in Toronto, I think it was, when they said, and so you're going to book the European tour, but you can't be called the agent, and there was a pregnant pause, and they said you've got to be called the European tour promoter. I thought, well, that actually sounds better. So we went outside the room. And Donna O'Donnell said to me, "We need you to come and hear this girl singing." So what do I want to do that for? I want to celebrate getting the Rolling Stones tour, which was the biggest act in the world.
I feel like I know where this is going.
And they took me to this 400-seat theatre. I had a ticket in the second row, and this woman came on and sang for an hour and 20 minutes. She was obviously very good. I'd love to say I'm a talent spotter, but I just thought she was really good. And I went backstage and met this bloke called Renee, and they were the most charming people I'd ever met.
This is pre-Titanic, I take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And he said, "Can you get us a gig in London?" I thought, they're nice. I booked a theatre, and the rest was history. 3 years later, we did 2 Wembley stadiums. I was Celine's agent for 20 years. Fantastic relationship. Beautiful lady. Always said please and thank you.
Donald had an idea.
Yeah. Well, she's the only artist I've ever represented who asked me if I was making enough money.
My mouth just hit the ground because I've never heard that come out of any artist's mouth.
It's a true story. She said to me, it was in Edinburgh, she said, "How have we done tonight?" "How have we done tonight?" And I said, "Put it this way, you sold more tickets than our other acts at a higher ticket price." She said, "You must be a good promoter." I said, "No, actually, it's not my name on the poster, it's yours." I mean, she's wonderful. One of the greatest artists I've ever worked with. And then it gets even better. The first arena tour we were doing, I wanted to do someone a favour and put an act on as support. And Renee called me up and said, "You can't do that. You've got to do David Foster a favour." And he sent me this white label cassette of this group. So 2 weeks before the tour, I thought, Jesus, I better listen to this. So I put it on, and there was this girl singing, and I thought it was really good. So I turned the cassette over, and there's this bloke's name on the back who I called up, and I said, "Have you got an agent?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, don't do anything till you turn up in Glasgow, and we'll have a conversation." And I turned up in Glasgow, and 3 of the best-looking women you've ever seen in your life walked in. It was the Cause. I mean,
so a bit of luck and
a lot of luck being in the right place at the right time, but you still have to deliver, don't you? I would say the people that have made my career, first of all, there was Wayne Forte and Michael Farrell. That went to Michael Cole and Tony Smith. That went to Arthur Fogel, and that went to Michael Rubino.
Okay, and how did the Madonna relationship come about?
Oh, the Madonna relationship came through U2 and Arthur Fogel, because she wanted to be represented by the people doing the biggest tour in the world, which was U2 at the time. And she met with Arthur, and they got on, and he made a proposal to her. And the rest, I think, how many tours have we done? 5, I think. I mean, she's the greatest female artist of all time, really, isn't she?
Brilliant.
Yeah, she's an icon beyond icon. Iconicness? I don't know what the word is.
She's an artist.
Exactly.
Let's try to keep it simple.
Fresh news, boat shoes, and interviews.
Only on
Promoter 101.
Leading off today on episode 168 of Promoter 101, we're going to kick things off with a war story from the man from Minnie, the historic theater group, Rick Hansen.
Hanging out with the amazing Rick Hansen. Let's see some magic tricks, motherfucker.
I got no magic tricks for you right now.
I got no strings to tie me down. It's that time of the podcast where we welcome you in and ask you to tell us a little history, a little war story, a little something, a little bit of that Madden of the industry that you're so known and beloved for.
One of my favorite ones that comes to mind is when I was booking the Breckenridge Music Festival out in Colorado. I had a artist come in, country artist, and was told by the agent and manager that he should not drink before the show. He's fine to drink after, but not before.
Who's the artist?
I'm not going to name names there. He's sober now, though, and so probably one that I don't want to go back into.
Oh, he's not dead?
No, he's not
How
dead.
good of a country artist could be if he's still alive?
All
the really good country artists are dead.
Yeah.
Especially from back in those days.
Back in those days, you're aging me now.
Well, you're old as fuck. I mean, your kids are basically driving.
Pretty soon. That's a scary thought. So anyways, we go, and at that point, since it was younger career, I was the runner, catering, production manager, everything for the show.
Renaissance man.
Exactly.
Rick Hansen.
And so I went over, picked up the artist from the hotel, and it's a 2.5-minute drive down to the venue, and the liquor store is right next door to the venue, and he just goes, "Hey man, gotta stop there." I go, "Nope, the venue's right here. We'll have catering, and we have booze for you after the show." And he's like, "No, you gotta stop." So I'm not going to tell the artist that I hired that we have a sold-out show for no. So I went over and went to the liquor store, got his booze, and I was paying for it. He brought it back out to the car, and by the time I got in there, he had chugged about a quarter of a bottle of Wild Turkey. And
who's this again?
Not going to say. So we get into the venue, and of course, artists don't really know in Breckenridge about altitude all that much. And it's even though Denver is altitude, 10,000 feet in Breck can really kill you. And so the artist started almost passing out. We had to give him some oxygen.
Was he able to pull the show off?
He went on stage, and it was like a different person, put on this persona.
Just nailed it.
Pulled it off, came back into the green room, and passed out within 45 seconds of getting off that stage.
So he played all the hits?
He played all the hits, and he played well.
Which was your favorite?
I'm not going to say which one. But no, it was just one of those things where I was just so young and I had to do everything. And I was just like, what do I do? Oh my God, I have a sold out show. This dude's not going to fucking get on stage. And he did, thank God, pulled off the show. But then we had to pretty much wheel him out of the venue afterwards.
So basically you killed one of the greatest country artists in the business.
Almost killed him.
You stopped to get him the booze, right?
I did stop to get him the booze. I'm an enabler.
Cool. Who's the artist again?
I'm not going to say it.
You got any stories where you could admit who you worked with?
Do you want me to tell you the artist?
You cave?
No, I can tell you it's a CAA artist. Now.
Were they CAA artists back then?
They were William Morris back then.
We've got the agency out of you, and we've learned that the artist wasn't loyal to their agency.
Yep.
That never happens.
Never happens.
Promoter 101 with Great War Series with Rick Hansen of Minneapolis, the Cultural Music Trust, right here on the podcast that brings it to you all the time, making the truth happen. Whether we get it or not, we ask the hard questions. Like, who the fuck was the artist that Rick Hansen once worked with and got drunk?
Thanks.
We're so excited to share a full interview from the man from Minnie on episode 169. Rick Hansen will be back on Promoter 101, sharing all things Minnie.
Looking forward to talking about Minnie.
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 I'm Amy Morrison. I work at Concerts West, AEG Presents, and I'm on Promoter 101.
It's Monday, Dan, so we got to talk about Promoter 101 Badass of the Week. Who do we have here?
This week it goes out to Promoter 101's dearest friend with the best hair in the industry, Mr. Michael Belkin Jr. He is the name you know in Cleveland, and he's just a total badass, making him this week's Promoter 101 Badass of the Week.
That's hard to argue. The man who helped bring rock and roll into Cleveland, continued a legacy, and is now running the store for Live Nation in Cleveland. Hard to argue that this guy is not deserving of the Promoter 101 Badass of the Week. Congrats.
Brian Zisk, SF Music Tech, Promoter 101. Woo!
In our featured interview this week, we're joined by Montreux Jazz Festival's Michaela Maiterth, here from Switzerland.
Your career has been vast. You've been working in the industry since 76, right? So you've got some serious chops.
No, I didn't enter the industry. Industry, I wouldn't say so. I was just
you were volunteering back
a
then.
Volunteer at the festival like everybody does in vacation time who wants to see concert, just security tickets, selling T-shirts, whatever job there is, And,
you didn't know it at the time, but you were learning.
Actually, it's not totally true. I did it for learning.
Oh, so you knew you wanted to do it.
Yes. It's my first concert, pop rock concert in 69, I think it was.
Oh, wow. Who'd you see?
Deep Purple in Rock in Montreux, organized by Claude Nobs, so I didn't know who it was at that time. And so I went there and I knew this is the thing I want to be involved with.
How cool is that?
I was 14 probably or something.
Going to see Deep Purple at 14.
Yes. Because I was in the boys' class at school. I was in Germany, actually, in a boarding school. And I was in the class, we were 4 girls only. And so the boys determined the music we were listening. While the girls' class with modern languages, they listened, of course, to more romantic stuff. Of course, the boys were into Led Zeppelin and Cream and Black Sabbath and Jimi Hendrix. I mean, the hard stuff. So I had to get along with that and I loved it. So, I got used to it and then I liked it. And so, of course, I didn't want to stay behind. So, of course, I went to see the concert.
How did you wind up in Switzerland? Because you said you came up in Germany, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was born in Hamburg. But the Hamburg climate, I love. Hamburg is a great city, but the climate is sort of wet and cold. And I didn't get along with my health too well. So the doctor said to my parents, move south. He probably meant south of Germany. My father decided I might as well learn another language. He was multilingual. And so he went a little bit further. He was thinking of France, but of course, we were German, so maybe not a good idea at that time. And so he learned that in Switzerland, there's a part of Switzerland where they speak French. And he went there. He thought it was very nice. And he happened to decide to live in Montreux. That was the first point. Then I was being sent back after a few years because I was starting to lose my German. So they sent me back to keep up with both languages to Germany in a boarding school. And there the boys, of course, were into music all the time, rock. And the Germans are more into Anglo-Saxon music. And so that's what we listened to. And when I came back during a vacation, my friends from French parts said, well, Deep Purple is playing. Do you want a ticket? We could get you one. Okay, so that's how it started.
Deep Purple. How big was that? Did they play the arena, the theater?
Well, at that time, I don't think the groups played arenas at that time. That was the problem because I think the equipment was not ready for that either at that time, to amplify such big places. It was mostly theaters they played at the very beginning. The other stuff came when there were Marshall walls and more amplifying capacities. It had to be invented, I think, because that's probably where the Beatles stopped because, the 5 boxes there, and then they had the Shea Stadium, and nobody heard anything. Of course, people were screaming too. But at first, it was a big audience, for over 1,000 people. That's something that was big at that time. It was the early days in a way,
Yeah, the sound systems and technology have caught up, but at that point...
Yeah, and so they basically performed that we're in a provincial small town, and it's not London or Paris or something. And so these places were totally normal for these type of groups emerging also to perform. Led Zeppelin performed there too.
Well, let's jump to the 80s where you were assistant to the production manager on some pretty big festivals.
Yeah, well, still in Montreux always because I was still at school. So I always came back to Montreux, but they determined that I was going to do this job as assistant production manager, which was Fraser Kennedy at the time, British crew. And so I trained my ear with English, so liberal technical English also. And so that's what I did all the time. And so I got into learning who was who, the road manager, the agent, what were they all doing. I learned that. And I was sort of a runner, assistant secretary, if you want, or gopher for the technical crew. And so, I learned a lot doing this. And that's how I started to understand how the business is structured in a way to make a show happen.
The festival thing, the scale of it is so big. Producing a show, you can kind of learn on the fly, especially in the clubs and the ballrooms. A little harder when you get into the theater, especially because you start dealing with more expensive crews. And then when you move into the arenas, definitely you really want to know how to mark off a stage. You want to know what's going on there. You want to know what's going to be needed, what the productions are, what the sight lines are going to be, what the seating chart's going to be, what the thrust is going to knock out, what the fire department is going to insist on as far as aisleways. And the specs at that point, everything needs to be catted out and done correctly. Not to mention when you build that into the stadium level. Festivals are that on steroids. All of that, multiple stages, a whole site that's probably never been used before. And if it has, in a different way. and figuring out exit plans and parking strategies and ways that you're going to set up the VIP and the hospitality and where the tour buses are coming and access and emergency lanes. The process for building that all out is a logistic nightmare. And that's yours.
Well, we have specialists for that, but the thing is, our thing
is that right?
Yes, in a way, but we're not an arena. We are small,
right?
And that's the other problem. We have to reduce the shows to fit our little venue because we have a 4,000 venue, a people venue. It's very small.
You wouldn't know it by your lineup, though.
That's the point. This is what it is, that we have some crew and is excellent. I mean, they have experience. They have experience with U2, the Rolling Stones, etc. And they know exactly what they need and to make it fit in our venue. If you accept to go there, the artists who have accepted that, David Bowie, Prince, Muse, Green Day. I mean, these guys are nice enough to accept to play there, this smaller thing. They're closer to the audience, but they have to reduce the show in a way. I mean, you cannot build up everything in 6 trucks. You can just put the equivalent of 1 truck there. You still need the 6 because it's loaded in a certain way. But that's the difficulty for us. Reduce it and still give the people the right show and reassure the artist that he can deliver his quality show to a smaller audience in a smaller space. The reducing, making miniature things is much more difficult probably than just put something in a place which is made for it, Our size is different.
Well, you got the 650 and you got the 4,000, right? And they're running simultaneously.
Yeah.
Okay, so at any given point, you could have 2 problems going simultaneously.
Absolutely, but we have, of course, different. We have each venue. I mean, well, it's a 2,000er, the smaller one, with the emerging acts.
Mm-hmm.
We have a club, which is smaller. That's for jazz and is seated. And we have the 4,000er.
That's the MJ Club, right? The
exactly,
smaller one?
Yes, yeah. But we have, of course, an experienced crew in each venue. So if there's a general building problem, that's a different fire or something, then everybody is involved. But
we don't want that. No fire.
No, thank you very much. So but everyone solves his problems on his own, in his own way. Now, if he needs help, of course, but it works like that.
And 3 independent teams taking care of each stage simultaneously.
Yes.
Okay, so how did you wind up with the jazz club? Because what a jump from the festival side of things. I mean, it's a festival still, but how do you wind up in that world?
I wanted to do that, but I didn't know how. I had absolutely no connection, etc. So it's sort of a line of circumstances, really. The fact of my father choosing Montreux, but I was at school in Germany and we did not have vacations in July, so I did not know there was a festival there. No clue. But my older brothers and friends at school, they knew about it, and they asked me one day if I could ask my mom if she would accommodate them for a few days at the jazz festival. So I was at school. They went to the jazz festival because they had finished school. So that was for a few years until finally I finished school and could go too. In the meantime, there were more, like 14 people hanging out, camping in my mother's garden. So I was a spectator for the first 2 years, 74, 75. And then I decided I could reserve better places and seats for my friends if I was inside. So I decided to apply.
Hey, you gotta love it.
I decided to
I'm going to book up my friends. I'm going to get the better gig. I love that.
But then, I also was interested in how it works. But so I applied, and they said, well, it was a very small team at that time, and there were 80 people, and they said, we don't need anybody. We're enough. We know each other. So do you typewrite? I didn't typewrite, so I could have been the assistant of the lady who was doing my job at that time, but didn't typewrite. So I applied anyway, and by chance, I got this positive reply, and full of excitement, I went to this meeting that they all have for the staff members, and I saw a tall guy smiling at me and said, "Who is this?" I think I know him. So I was in class with him, and he was the head of staff at the festival at that time, and he recognized my picture on this form. And that's how he hired me. It was just because he was there.
He knew your picture. He'd seen you enough.
Yeah, because I was in the same class. Yeah,
oh, nice.
I was in the same class. So he said, "Well, he's back." So poof, little
it's about
things.
Who you know.
Yeah, but that was to be a staff member. And the latest thing was, to get the permanent job as an assistant for Claude Nobs, the founder of the festival. That was another circumstance. I was working in the jazz agency in Germany, and I got this phone call, but still always maintaining my staff, my assistancy of technical crew. And in July, and so I got this call from Claude. My assistant is going to leave. Do you want to take the job? Because he had noticed that I was there. We had some things to do. And so he called me one day because somebody was leaving.
And now you're in the inside and you get your friends the better ticket.
Yes, well, now I can give less tickets to friends. That was easier. I didn't take the tickets, just the seats, because it was all seated at the time, and I could just reserve the first row because there was no numbers. I didn't get them in like that. It was
you get
just
a couple comps, right? You work for the team.
Yeah, but I mean, not that many when you're on the smaller scale. You know, you have maybe one invite, but it was just to put them on the first row for them to see the music better.
Yeah, obviously. How many languages do you speak?
Basically, I consider myself bilingual German. I added the English in, sitting at the door and getting all these accents, you know, from the bluesmen of Texas. And so in school, of course, I had the basics, but to really speak, I was sitting at the door saying no to people who cannot enter here, backstage door and stuff. And I learned by practice, you know.
Okay, so two, English and German.
Well, no, German I speak from the cradle, and then I did French because I was in the French part, and then English, and a little bit of Spanish now because my mom moved to Latin America for a while.
Okay, so 3 languages that you're pretty fluent in, and then a little bit of Spanish. That's impressive.
It gives you a lot of comfort to travel.
When you're buying, do you mostly do business in English?
Yeah, I mean, this is my work language, yeah.
Your work language?
Yeah.
What are you thinking when you're processing internally, when you're just thinking to yourself?
I don't know, actually. I mean, German, French, I don't...
You're just so fluent in all of them, it's just fine. It doesn't matter.
I don't know if I'm thinking at all, but if I think it's, it's basically... I think I can also think English.
Can you give us some advice for young generations coming up for career longevity? Because you've had such a long career in the business.
Well, I must admit that I hit the jackpot because, it's just fantastic. Also to having worked for somebody like Claude, who was extremely creative and who had a wide palette of, because we are very eclectic in our musical choices, you know. It's called Jazz Festival, but we do a lot of rock and jazz and all the musical styles. So this is, of course, something that was very appealing. But what can I... just go for it because there's no real school for it. You have to learn by practice, I would say, in the field.
Learn by doing. Just get your hands dirty.
Yeah, because I don't know if you can teach that at school. You can probably teach at school like cultural management for subsidized places or fixed places like theaters and operas and something like that. Probably you can learn at school. Management like that to deal with authorities and get subsidies and stuff. But that every festival is different. You have different circumstances. You're in the field, you're in the stadium, you're like us in the conference center. It all depends. The style is different. The mentality is different. Circumstances are different. If you take somebody from another festival and put it in our place, I would say, don't forget what you learned, but don't think that you can copy and paste. That's not possible. For certain elementary matters like what you need to know, of course, when do they arrive, how many are they, blah, blah, blah. But
it's not a copy-paste thing, but you're building on what you know.
Yeah, and you have to practice. You have to understand it's a very much relational thing with people. You have people from so many different horizons, you know. You have to get along with everybody, with the crews, with managers, with agents, and whoever is there, you know. You have, and your own team, preferably also. So it's, and you have to match the two crews, our crew with the crew that's arriving. They have to collaborate very precisely. Sometimes they don't know each other and they have to plug in and it has to work, you know. And the moment it says go, it has to work.
Thank you so much for taking the time and talking to our listeners. Thank you, Michaela.
My pleasure.
Love the international sessions. She is so cool. We're just lucky to have her here on Promoter 101.
Hi, this is Bruce Solar from APA. I'm about to tell you some very, very secret stuff on Promoter 101.
Quote of the week comes to us from Banksy, Luke.
Banksy!
If you get tired, learn to rest, not to quit. I like this one.
I like it too, Dan.
Dennis Offer. I'm on Promoter 101.
Episode 168 is indeed done, Dan. We have to thank all of our lovely listeners out there who tuned in. Thanks for listening to this podcast. And thank you to our amazing guests from Switzerland, from Montreux Jazz Festival, Michaela Maiterth. Thank you for coming on the podcast. And from Minneapolis, Mr. Rick Hansen. Good to have you on the podcast, buddy.
We'll return this Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. on the East, and that'll be around midnight in London town.
On Thursday, we're going to have a great interview with the man who delivered a great war story today. From a historic theater group, we're going to welcome back Rick Hansen, keeping us in the loop on all the performing arts business in Minnie.
Until then, we're wishing you sold-out shows for the weeks to come.
Cheers, and call your mother.
This is Jake Berry, a production director. I'm on Promoter 101. Ba-da-ba-ba.